You are listening to Compound Money Quietly, the CMQ Investing podcast. My name is Chris Franco, and in this episode, you will learn about a proven tool that has been used by investors for decades to make better decisions about what they buy. We're talking about the 15-point checklist that legendary investor Phil Fisher would use when determining if an investment was worthwhile. Now, if you're a CMQ investor, you know how important checklists are. Charlie Munger has said that if you're trying to analyze a company without using an adequate checklist, you may make a very bad investment. And one of the reasons I hope that you'll continue to come back and listen to new episodes and, share the podcast with your friends and talk about it, it's because we're looking out. I want you to avoid making bad investments. And this tool, this checklist, I think is one of the most useful ways that you can go about protecting yourself from wrecking yourself. I'll share with you in just one moment, but before we begin, please take a moment, if you haven't already, to follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It only takes a few seconds. Just move your thumb to the follow button, tap down, and you'll be good to go. Now let's get to the checklist. According to Phil Fisher, a company must qualify on most of these 15 points to be considered a worthwhile investment. Number 1, does the company have products or services with sufficient market potential to make possible a sizable increase in sales for at least several years? A company seeking a sustained period of spectacular growth must have products that address large and expanding markets. Number 2, does the management have a determination to continue to develop products or processes that will still further increase total sales potentials when growth potentials of currently attractive product lines have largely been exploited? All markets eventually mature, and to maintain above-average growth over a period of decades, a company must continually develop new products to either expand existing markets or enter new ones. Number 3, how effective are the company's research and development efforts in relation to its size? To develop new products, a company's research and development effort must be both efficient and effective. Number 4, does the company have an above-average sales organization? Fisher wrote that in a competitive environment, few products or services are so compelling that they will sell to their maximum potential without expert merchandising. Number 5, does the company have a worthwhile profit margin? A company can show tremendous growth, but the growth must bring worthwhile profits to reward investors. Number 6, what is the company doing to maintain or improve profit margins? Fisher stated, "It is not the profit margin of the past, but those of the future that are basically important to the investor. Because inflation increases a company's expenses and competitors will pressure profit margins, you should pay attention to a company's strategy for reducing costs and improving profit margins over the long haul." Number 7, does the company have outstanding labor and personnel relations? According to Fisher, a company with good labor relations tends to be more profitable than one with mediocre relations because happy employees are likely to be more productive. There is no single yardstick to measure the state of a company's labor relations, but there are a few items investors should investigate. First, companies with good labor relations usually make every effort to settle employee grievances quickly. In addition, a company that makes above-average profits, even while paying above-average wages to its employees, is likely to have good labor relations. Finally, investors should pay attention to the attitude of top management toward employees. Now, just a side note here, one of the best examples of a company that does an exceptional job with, labor relations, and I feel like that's a little bit of an outdated term, but that company is Costco. I read an interview with the CFO of Costco. This was several years ago, but they asked him, why did you increase wages or something along those lines? And his answer was, it's the right thing to do. Number 8, does the company have outstanding executive relations? Fisher noted that in companies where the founding family retains control, family members should not be promoted ahead of more able executives. In addition, executive salaries should be at least in line with industry norms. Number 9, does the company have depth to its management? As a company continues to grow over a span of decades, it is vital that a deep pool of management talent be properly developed. Fisher warned investors to avoid companies where top management is reluctant to delegate significant authority to lower-level managers. Number 10, how good are the company's cost analysis and accounting controls? A company cannot deliver outstanding returns over the long term if it is unable to closely track costs in each step of its operations. Fisher stated that getting a precise handle on companies' cost analysis is difficult, but an investor can discern what companies are exceptionally deficient, and these are the companies to avoid. Number 11. Are there other aspects of the business which will give the investor important clues as to how outstanding the company may be in relation to its competition? Fisher described this point as a catch-all because the important clues will vary widely among industries. It is critical for an investor to understand which industry factors determine the success of a company and how that company stacks up in relation to its rivals. Number 12. Does the company have a short-range or long-range outlook in regard to profits? Fisher argued that investors should take a long-range view, and thus should favor companies that take a long-range view on profits. In addition, companies focused on meeting Wall Street's quarterly earnings estimates may forego beneficial long-term actions if they cause a short-term hit to earnings. Even worse, management may be tempted to make aggressive accounting assumptions in order to report an acceptable quarterly profit number. Number 13. In the foreseeable future, will the growth of the company require sufficient equity financing so that the larger number of shares then outstanding will largely cancel the existing shareholders' benefit from this anticipated growth? As an investor, you should seek companies with sufficient cash or borrowing capacity to fund growth without diluting the interest of its current owners with follow-on equity offerings. Number 14. Does the management talk freely to investors about its affairs when things are going well, but then clam up when troubles and disappointments occur? Every business, no matter how wonderful, will occasionally face disappointments. Investors should seek out management that reports candidly to shareholders all aspects of the business, good or bad. And finally, number 15, does the company have a management of unquestionable integrity? The accounting scandals that led to the bankruptcies of Enron and WorldCom should highlight the importance of investing only with management teams of unquestionable integrity. Now, the version of the checklist that you just heard is a condensed version that I found via Morningstar, and then I made my own edits to it. But the official, full detailed version can be found in Phil Fisher's book, Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits. This has been Compound Money Quietly, the CMQ Investing podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you're listening through Apple Podcasts, we'd greatly appreciate if you could leave a written review. And if you don't do that, well, I think in all likelihood, your karma will be so bad that your portfolio is probably going to go to zero. I'm going to leave that in. In all seriousness, it's great building this community with you. I appreciate you being part of it. Once again, my name is Chris Franco. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk soon.